Ben Dallas faced an outrageous invasion when the HOA called the police on him for pitching a tent on his own ranch. Jason Wilson, the smug HOA member, had been trespassing on Ben's land for months, claiming false authority and humiliating him publicly. But when Ben uncovered the truth and fought back with undeniable evidence, everything changed. Just wait until you see how this fierce battle for justice unfolded and why, in the end, fairness finally won the day. Ben Dallas had always cherished his weekends on the ranch. It was his escape, peaceful and serene with nothing but the wind through the trees and the soft lapping of the lake against the shore. After a long week of hard work, pitching a tent by the water was all he needed to unwind. This particular weekend, Ben set up camp just as he always did. He had his usual routine: a warm campfire, a simple meal, and the quiet solitude that came with being far away from the noise of the city. But as he settled into his chair by the fire, a car pulled up in the distance. At first, Ben thought little of it, perhaps a neighbor or a friendly passerby. But as the car neared, he could see the official-looking letters on the side of the vehicle: HOA. His stomach dropped. He wasn't expecting them, and he certainly didn't invite them. A group of 3 people stepped out, led by Jason Wilson, a member of the Homeowners Association. Ben's eyes narrowed. He had dealt with HOA complaints before, but never like this. Jason's smug grin did nothing to ease the tension building in the air. "Mr. Dallas," Jason began, his voice dripping with a sense of authority, "this land is private property, and we've received complaints about unauthorized camping here." Ben stood up, trying to remain calm. "This is my land. I own this property. I have every right to be here." Jason's expression hardened, but there was no apology, no recognition of Ben's rights. "You're violating HOA rules, Mr. Dallas. We've already called the police. You need to pack up and leave immediately." Ben's jaw clenched. He tried to explain again, to point out the deeds and documents proving that the land belonged to him, but his words were met with dismissive stares. Jason waved a hand as if dismissing Ben's concerns like they were nothing. The air was thick with frustration, and Ben could feel the heat rising in his chest. But before he could say anything more, the sound of sirens interrupted their conversation. Moments later, a police car arrived, lights flashing. The officer stepped out, eyes scanning the scene, taking in the tense atmosphere. Jason approached him immediately, his tone insistent. "This man is trespassing. We've asked him to leave, but he's refusing. We need you to remove him from the property." Ben was stunned. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. He had lived here for years, and yet, in an instant, his weekend escape had turned into a battle for his rights. The officer turned to Ben, his expression unreadable. "Sir, I need you to step aside while we sort this out." Ben felt a wave of disbelief wash over him. Was this really happening? Was he about to lose his land, his peaceful retreat, over a simple tent by a lake? The situation was spiraling out of control faster than he could keep up, but he wasn't about to back down. Not now, not when he knew the truth. As the officer made his way over to Jason, Ben stood there fuming, trying to hold it together. What was once a quiet weekend retreat had just turned into a nightmare, and the real battle was only beginning. Jason stood there, a smug smile playing on his lips as if the whole situation was nothing more than a game to him. He crossed his arms, clearly enjoying the power he had over Ben in that moment. The sound of the wind was barely audible against the pounding in Ben's ears as Jason's words hit him like a slap in the face. "Ben, you really don't understand, do you? The HOA has rights over this area. You might own this land, but the community rules. Those apply here, not just what's on paper." Ben's fists clenched at his sides. He knew something was off. He had suspected for a while that Jason was a thorn in his side, but hearing it now, hearing him speak as if Ben's ownership didn't matter, pushed Ben to the edge. He fought to keep his voice steady, but the raw anger bubbling beneath the surface was nearly impossible to contain. "This is my land, Jason. I've got the deed to prove it. You've got no right to be here. And neither does the HOA, Jason only shrugged, his smile widening. Technically, we've been using the land for months. You've never complained before. Why make an issue out of it now? It was like a switch had been flipped. Ben's head felt like it was spinning. Not only was Jason trespassing on his property, but he was also acting as if it was normal, as if Ben was the one in the wrong. He could feel his heart race as frustration and disbelief mixed together in a boiling pot of fury. The more Jason spoke, the more it became clear. This wasn't just about a misunderstanding. This was deliberate. Jason had been encroaching on Ben's land for months, using it for his own purposes, without permission, without so much as a courtesy to ask. Ben's mind reeled. How many times had Jason walked around here, pretending like he had some kind of claim on this place? How many times had he brought other people onto Ben's property, quietly using it as if it were his own? "You're lying," Ben shot back, his voice sharper than he intended. "You've been using my land without my permission. This is illegal." Jason didn't flinch. If anything, he seemed to enjoy Ben's outrage, feeding off the tension he had stirred up. "You're just angry because you didn't notice until now. It's too late to do anything about it." The audacity of it all, the complete disregard for Ben's rights, ignited a fire in him. Jason had taken advantage of his absence, using Ben's peaceful land like it was some kind of community property, and now he was standing there, completely unfazed, denying everything that Ben had worked for, everything he held dear. But what cut the deepest wasn't just the intrusion, it was the humiliation. The whole neighborhood, it seemed, had sided with Jason. They'd been calling the shots, pulling the strings behind Ben's back while he was obliviously enjoying his life. Now, it was all coming to light. And Jason was making Ben look like a fool. Ben could feel the heat rising in his chest, his face flushing with the burning realization of how far this had gone. This wasn't just about a tent, or even about a piece of land. It was about respect, about justice. The more Jason spoke, the more Ben's blood boiled. He was done playing nice. His voice shook with the intensity of his anger as he stepped forward, staring Jason down. "You think you can just walk all over me, take what's mine, and get away with it?" Jason didn't back down. In fact, he leaned in closer, almost daring Ben to make a move. "You've got two choices, Ben. Leave quietly or we'll let the authorities handle it." Ben's hands balled into fists. His entire body was on edge, the injustice of it all overwhelming. But it was at that moment that something clicked. This was no longer about leaving or getting permission. This was war. The anger that had been simmering under the surface finally exploded, and the truth became clear. Jason wasn't just a nuisance. He was a thief, a manipulator, and Ben wasn't going to stand for it any longer. The battle for his land had only just begun, but in that moment, Ben knew one thing for sure. Jason had made a mistake, and Ben would make sure he paid for it. Ben couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. The more he thought about what Jason had done, the more furious he became. This wasn't just about a tent. It was about his dignity, his rights, his very home being violated. Jason had crossed a line, and Ben wasn't about to let him get away with it. Determined to fight back, Ben set to work. Every day, he meticulously documented everything: the unauthorized construction on his land, the equipment left behind, and the people who'd been trespassing without permission. He took photos of the fences that had gone up without his consent, the signs that seemed to appear overnight, and the cars parked in spots that were supposed to be private. He was building a case that would expose the HOA's abuse of power and hold them accountable for every illegal move they made. But even with all the evidence, things weren't going smoothly. When Ben went to the police for help, he was met with resistance. Officer Owens, the same officer who had shown up with the HOA earlier, sided with Jason and the association, brushing off Ben's claims as if they were insignificant. "You're just making a scene," Officer Owens said dismissively. "These are private matters, not something we need to escalate." Ben's frustration hit a boiling point. His hands trembled as he tried to contain the seething anger inside him. The system was broken, and it felt like everyone was conspiring against him, but that only fueled his resolve. He wasn't going to back down. With a fierce determination, Ben hired a lawyer, someone who specialized in property rights and had experience fighting against corrupt organizations. He gathered more evidence, making sure he was ready for any legal battle that would come. He wasn't going to let this go, not when everything he had worked for was at stake. The next few weeks were filled with long nights of research and endless phone calls. But every time Ben thought about giving up, he remembered Jason's smug face. He remembered the way Jason had spoken down to him, like his rights meant nothing. And that was the fuel Ben needed to keep going. He wasn't just fighting for his land anymore. He was fighting for justice. This was bigger than the HOA. This was about showing that no one, no matter how powerful they thought they were, could trample over the rights of an individual. Ben pressed forward, refusing to let the police or the HOA intimidate him. The anger that had once been a slow burn now raged inside him. He was no longer passive, no longer the quiet ranch owner just trying to get by. He was a man with a purpose, and nothing was going to stop him from reclaiming what was rightfully his. As the days passed, the tension only grew. Ben knew he was walking into a storm, but it didn't matter. He was done with being pushed around. This fight wasn't just about legal documents. It was about standing tall in the face of corruption, about making sure that his property, his sanctuary, wasn't taken from him by someone who thought they could get away with it. Ben wasn't going to let that happen. The battle was just beginning, and he was prepared to take it all the way. Weeks of tension, countless meetings with lawyers, and long nights of waiting finally led to a turning point. The courtroom was packed, every eye on the judge as he delivered the verdict. When the ruling came down in Ben's favor, it felt like a heavy weight had been lifted off his shoulders. The court recognized the blatant violations committed by the HOA, the unauthorized structures, the trespassing, the disrespect for his private property, and ordered them to remove everything immediately. Standing by the lake afterward, Ben took a deep breath and let the calm wash over him. The sun was dipping low, casting golden light across the water, and for the first time in months, his ranch felt truly his again. He looked around at the untouched shoreline, the peaceful trees, and the tent he'd pitched not long ago, symbols of the quiet life he loved and fought so hard to protect. More than the legal victory, Ben felt a profound sense of justice. This wasn't just about land rights. It was about standing up when it mattered most. Against the arrogance and shortcuts of those who thought they could bend the rules, Ben had made it clear, respect for others' rights matters, and it can be defended. The battle had been exhausting and stressful, but now the triumph was deeply satisfying. Ben's resolve had turned into results, and the peace he now felt was sweeter than he ever imagined. The HOA's overreach was stopped, and his home was safe once more. As the evening breeze swept across the lake, Ben smiled quietly to himself. The fight was over. He had reclaimed his land, his dignity, and his peace of mind. And with that, he knew he could finally enjoy his ranch the way he always dreamed, free, secure in his own.